I found him near death, barely breathing. The X-ray revealed something horrifying inside him. It wasn't an accident, someone wanted him gone. I'll never forget the day I found Max. It was a chilly evening in Portland, Oregon, just as I was locking up my vet clinic in Northeast. The streets were quiet, the air heavy with the scent of rain. I was about to head home when I heard a faint whimper from the alley behind the clinic. My heart skipped a beat. I followed the sound, my sneakers crunching on wet gravel, until I saw it, a small, shivering bundle curled up near a dumpster. It was a puppy, barely alive, his fur matted with dirt and blood. I knelt down, my breath catching. His eyes, dull and half-closed, met mine. He was skin and bones, ribs poking through his patchy coat. I could see infected wounds on his legs, oozing and raw. One of his front paws was bent at a sickening angle, clearly broken. My stomach churned, but I'm a veterinarian, I've seen worse. Still, something about this little guy hit me hard. I couldn't leave him there. I scooped him up, his body limp in my arms, and rushed him inside the clinic. The fluorescent lights buzzed as I laid him on the exam table. His body temperature was dangerously low, his pulse weak. I grabbed my stethoscope, my hands shaking slightly. Malnutrition, infection, a fractured leg this puppy was hanging on by a thread. I didn't know if he'd make it, but I had to try. I prepped for surgery, my mind racing. The clock on the wall ticked past 7, but I didn't care. I cleaned his wounds, set his broken leg, and started an IV to stabilize him. Every move was deliberate, but my chest was tight with fear. What if I was too late? The surgery was grueling, 2 hours of suturing, stabilizing, and praying. His tiny chest rose and fell, each breath a small victory. When I finally stitched him up, I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. The next few days were touch and go. I stayed late at the clinic, checking on him every hour. I fed him small bits of food, watching his frail body struggle to accept it. But then, something shifted. On day 3, he lifted his head when I walked in. His eyes, clearer now, locked onto mine. He let out a weak whimper, and my heart swelled. I sat beside his crate, talking softly, telling him he was safe. By day 5, he wagged his tail, just a faint twitch, but it was enough. I knew then he was a fighter. I named him Max, after my childhood dog, who'd been my shadow through tough times. Max's spirit was starting to shine through, and I felt a connection growing. I couldn't let him go to a shelter. He'd been through too much. I decided right there he was coming home with me. Bringing Max home felt like starting a new chapter. I lived in a small house in Portland's Laurelhurst neighborhood, with a cozy backyard and big windows letting in soft Oregon light. The day I brought Max through the door, his eyes, now brighter, darted around, taking it all in. I'd set up a corner for him in the living room, a blue and gray bed with Max stitched on it, a basket of chew toys nearby. But Max had other plans. He ignored the bed, limping straight to me, his tail giving a weak wag. I laughed, scratching his ears. This dog wasn't about to stay in a corner. Max became my shadow. If I was in the kitchen chopping vegetables, he'd sprawl on the tile, watching me with those soulful brown eyes. If I sat on the couch, he'd hop up, curling into my side, his warmth a comfort after long clinic days. At night, he refused his fancy bed, choosing instead to sleep at the foot of mine, his soft snores filling the quiet. I'd lie there, listening, feeling like I'd found a piece of family I didn't know I was missing. As Max healed, his personality bloomed. He was curious, maybe too curious. I'd come home to find my trash can tipped over, coffee grounds scattered, and Max looking guilty with a paper towel in his mouth. Once, he dragged my sneakers from the closet, arranging them in a neat row by the door. I couldn't stay mad. His proud little prance made me laugh every time. I started taking him to Laurelhurst Park, where he'd chase squirrels, his limp fading with each passing week. He'd bound through the grass, ears flopping, pure joy radiating from him. Watching him run, I felt my heart lift. This was the life he deserved. But Max wasn't just playful, he was protective. One evening at the park, a guy got too close while I was throwing a ball for Max. The guy, loud and pushy, started yelling about unleashed dogs, even though Max was on a leash. Max sensed my tension. He planted himself between us, letting out a low growl, his fur bristling. The guy backed off, muttering. I knelt down, ruffling Max's fur, whispering, "Good boy." That moment sealed it. Max wasn't just my dog, he was my partner. Our routine became sacred. Every morning, Max would nudge my hand, demanding a walk. We'd stroll through the neighborhood, passing coffee shops and craftsman houses, his tail wagging like a metronome. Evenings were for the couch, Max's head on my lap as I watched TV. He had this habit of barking at people running on the screen, like he was ready to chase them. I'd laugh, pulling him close, his warmth grounding me after stressful shifts at the clinic. Max's energy filled the house with life. He'd steal socks, hide them under the couch, and look at me like he'd pulled off a heist. At the park, he'd play with other dogs, tumbling in the grass, his joy infectious. People would stop to pet him, saying, "What a happy dog." I'd smile, my chest swelling with pride. Max had come so far from that broken puppy in the alley. He'd become my best friend, my constant. I didn't realize how much I needed him until he was there, filling every corner of my life with love. It was a Tuesday evening, the kind of gray, drizzly day Portland's known for. I'd had a brutal shift at the clinic, back-to-back emergencies, my hands still shaking from the last surgery. surgery. All I wanted was to get home, kick off my shoes, and see Max waiting for me, tail wagging like always. But when I opened the door, the house was silent. No patter of paws, no excited bark. My stomach dropped. I called his name. Max, buddy, where are you? Nothing. My heart started racing. I tore through the house, checking every room. The living room was empty, his bed untouched. The kitchen, no sign of him. My bedroom, nothing but silence. Panic clawed at my chest. I ran to the backyard, hoping he was chasing a squirrel. That's when I saw it, a small gap in the wooden fence, just wide enough for Max to slip through. My blood ran cold. How had I missed this? I grabbed a flashlight, my voice hoarse as I shouted his name into the dusk. I sprinted down the street, my sneakers slapping wet pavement, calling for Max. The Laurelhurst neighborhood was quiet, streetlights flickering on. I knocked on neighbors' doors, my voice shaking as I described him: brown fur, floppy ears, a limp that was barely there now. Most shook their heads, sorry, but clueless. Then I reached a house in Selwood, a few blocks away. The guy who answered, an older man with a scowl, snapped, "If that's the mutt I saw sniffing my yard, he's a stray. Keep him out." My fists clenched, but I bit my tongue. I had to find Max. I kept searching, my flashlight cutting through the growing dark. I checked alleys, peered into yards, called his name until my throat burned. Hours passed. My phone died, but I didn't care. I couldn't stop. The thought of Max out there alone, scared, maybe hurt, tore me apart. I pictured him shivering in the rain, his big eyes looking for me. Guilt hit hard. I should have checked the fence. I should have kept him safe. He'd trusted me, and I'd failed him. I stumbled back to my neighbor's house, an elderly woman named Mrs. Ellis, who was always out tending her roses. If anyone saw Max, it'd be her. She was on her porch, watering cans in hand. I jogged up, breathless, and asked if she'd seen him. She paused, her brow furrowing. "I think I saw a dog like that by the big oak on 39th Street, she said. My heart leaped. I thanked her and ran, my pulse pounding in my ears. But when I got to the oak tree, there was nothing. No Max, no paw prints, just wet leaves and shadows. I shouted his name, my voice cracking. I checked the bushes, the nearby park, even behind garbage cans. Nothing. I went back to Mrs. Ellis, desperate for more details. She admitted softly that she hadn't been wearing her glasses. It might not have been him, she said, her voice kind but useless. My hope crumbled. I asked other neighbors, but no one had seen him. Tears stung my eyes, but I blinked them back. I had to keep going. Night fell, cold and heavy. I wandered the streets, my jacket soaked, calling for Max until my voice gave out. Every rustle made me jump, thinking it was him, but it never was. I didn't sleep that night, sitting on the couch, staring at his empty bed. The house felt hollow without his energy, his warmth. I couldn't shake the dread that I might never see him again. Max was out there somewhere, and I wouldn't stop until I brought him home. A week after Max vanished, I was a wreck. I'd plastered flyers across Portland, his photo staring back at me from every lamppost in Laurelhurst. I called shelters, checked online, and walked the streets until my feet ached. The house felt like a tomb without his bounding energy. I'd stare at his empty bed, my chest tight with guilt. Then, on a rainy Thursday, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. My heart skipped. It was a shelter in Gresham, 20 miles away. "We've got a dog matching your description," the woman said. I grabbed my keys, barely breathing, and sped through the drizzle. When I walked into the shelter, I saw him. Max was curled in a corner crate, his fur matted with mud, his eyes dull. He looked so small, so fragile, like that first night in the alley. My throat closed up. I knelt by the crate, whispering his name. His ears twitched, and those brown eyes met mine. His tail gave a weak wag, and I nearly broke down. I opened the crate, and he struggled to his feet, pressing his head into my chest. I held him tight, tears burning my eyes. He was back. My Max was back. The drive home was quiet. Max curled up in the passenger seat, too tired to lift his head. At home, I gave him a warm bath, gently scrubbing the grime from his fur. He ate a little, but his usual gusto was gone. I wrapped him in a blanket, letting him sleep on the couch beside me. His breathing was shallow, and I couldn't shake the feeling something was wrong. He wasn't just tired, he was off. As a vet, I trusted my gut. I decided to take him to the clinic the next morning. At the clinic, I ran every test: blood work, vitals, x-rays. When the x-ray results came up, my stomach dropped. A dark mass showed in Max's intestines, a piece of plastic, likely swallowed while he was lost. It was blocking his system, life-threatening if left untreated. My hands shook as I stared at the screen. Surgery was the only option, and it had to happen now. The thought of cutting into Max, my best friend, made my heart pound, but I'd saved him before. I could do it again. I prepped the operating room, my mind a storm of fear and focus. My staff offered to assist, but I needed to do this myself. Max trusted me. I scrubbed in, my hands steadying as I looked at him on the table, sedated, his chest rising slowly. The surgery was brutal. Every cut felt like it was slicing through me. The plastic was lodged deep, tangled in his intestines. Sweat beaded on my forehead as I worked, the clock ticking past midnight. My eyes burned, but I couldn't stop. Max was a fighter, and I had to be one too. After 3 grueling hours, I removed the blockage, a jagged piece of plastic, sharp enough to tear. I stitched him up, my hands trembling with relief and exhaustion. I sat by his side, monitoring his vitals, whispering to him, "You've got got this, buddy." The room was silent except for the hum of machines. Dawn crept through the blinds, and Max's eyelids fluttered. He whimpered softly, his eyes finding mine. I choked back a sob, stroking his head. He was alive. The next few days were tense. I stayed at the clinic, sleeping in a chair beside him. Max slowly regained strength, eating small bites, his tail wagging faintly. By day 4, he stood on his own, nuzzling my hand. I brought him home, my heart lighter but still heavy with the scare. Max was back, but I knew he'd been through too much. I swore to keep him safe, no matter what. Max came home from the clinic a little weaker, but his spirit was still there. I watched him closely, my heart catching every time he moved too slowly. His tail wagged, but it wasn't the wild metronome it used to be. I set up a cozy spot for him on the couch in our Portland home, with a soft blanket and his favorite chew toy. He'd curl up there, his brown eyes following me as I moved around the house. I could tell he was grateful to be back, and so was I. Our routine picked up, but it was different now. Morning walks through Laurelhurst were slower, Max sniffing the grass with less energy. I didn't mind. I'd wait as long as he needed, letting him set the pace. At Mount Tabor Park, he'd still try to chase squirrels, but he'd tire quickly, plopping down in the shade. I'd sit beside him, scratching his ears, the city's hum fading into the background. Those moments felt precious, like we were stealing time. Winter came, and Max loved the snow. One evening, as flakes fell in our backyard, he bounded through the drifts, his nose dusted white. He looked like the puppy I'd found years ago, full of life. I laughed, tossing snowballs for him to chase. But then, mid-run, he stumbled. His legs gave out, and he collapsed, his breath coming in short gasps. My heart stopped. I rushed to him, scooping him up, his body cold against my chest. Panic surged as I carried him inside, his eyes half closed. I drove to the clinic, the streets a blur. My hands shook as I checked his vitals. Hypothermia, likely worsened by his past injuries and that awful week he was lost. I wrapped him in heated blankets, started IV fluids, and worked through the night. My mind raced with fear, but I pushed it down. Max needed me calm. By morning, his breathing steadied, his eyes brighter. I sank into a chair, exhausted, tears stinging my eyes. He'd pulled through again. After that scare, I was hypervigilant. I kept Max inside during cold snaps, checked his food obsessively, and never let him out of my sight at the park. He seemed to sense my worry, nudging my hand with his nose like he was saying, "I'm okay." But I could see the changes. His fur was graying around his muzzle, his steps slower. He'd nap for hours by the window, watching the world go by. I started working shorter shifts, wanting every moment with him. We still had our joys. Evenings on the couch, Max's head on my lap, his warmth grounding me. He'd still bark at the TV, chasing shadows of people running across the screen. I'd laugh, pulling him close, his fur soft under my fingers. Our walks were shorter, but he'd still wag his tail at the sight of Laurelhurst Park's trees. I cherished every second, knowing time was slipping away. One quiet night, as rain tapped the windows, Max climbed onto the couch, slower than usual. He rested his head on my thigh, letting out a soft sigh. I stroked his fur, whispering how much I loved him. His eyes met mine, calm and trusting. I didn't know it then, but that moment was a goodbye. Max was tired, his body worn from years of fighting. I held him close, my heart full, unaware that our time was running out. That rainy night in Portland, Max curled up beside me on the couch. His head rested on my lap, heavy and warm, his breathing slow. I ran my fingers through his graying fur, whispering how much he meant to me. His eyes, soft and trusting, met mine one last time. I didn't know it then, but Max was slipping away. Sometime in the night, he passed quietly, his body still in that familiar spot at the foot of my bed, curled into a peaceful ball. When I woke and found him, my world stopped. I touched his fur, hoping for a twitch, a breath, anything, but he was gone. My chest ached, tears falling as I sat there, unable to move. Max, my fighter, my shadow, was no more. The house felt hollow, every corner echoing his absence, his empty bed, the untouched toys, the silence where his barks used to be. I buried Max in the backyard, under the old oak tree where we'd played in the snow. The winter air was sharp, biting my skin as I dug, my hands trembling. I placed his favorite chew toy beside him, a piece of our life together. Standing there, I felt grief crash over me, heavy and raw, but beneath it, there was gratitude. Max had filled my days with joy, with purpose. He'd been my family. Looking back, Max taught me more than I could have imagined. He showed me resilience, how to fight through pain and come out stronger. Those early days, saving him from that alley, felt like a lifetime ago. Every wag of his tail, every protective growl, every quiet moment on the couch, they were gifts. He taught me to cherish the small things, to love fiercely, even when it hurts. Now, when I walk through Laurelhurst Park, I see him in the rustling leaves, hear him in the crunch of snow. The pain of losing him hasn't faded, but it's softer now, woven with memories that make me smile. Max wasn't just a dog, he was my partner, my lesson in how fragile and beautiful life is. I'm grateful for every second we had, and I carry him with me always.